Welcome to the GameMinder Report. I love clipping my mic. It's my.
Why do you do that every week? There's one thing to be excited. It's another thing to just be asinine.
I want people to be using this to wake up to.
Wake up to the GameMinder Report. It's Jim and Jeremy in the morning zoo.
Ding ding. So now that we have finally started the podcast, I wanted to talk about podcasts in general.
Podcasts in general.
And the awards that you can get for said podcast.
Let me ask you a question, Jim.
Yes.
Are we the greatest podcast ever made?
Ever?
That's for history to decide, Jim. That's not for us to decide. That's for history to decide.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
So podcastawards.com.
Yep.
You go there, you can choose GameMinder, the GameMinder Report.
The GameMinder Report.
Or as I like to say, the GameMinderReport.com.
Indeed.
Sign up. Actually, there is no sign up. There is no Facebook liking. There is no retweeting or anything. You can choose us for People's Choice or Best Produced. And then you can also choose us for Best Gaming Podcast.
Indeed.
And then if you listen to other podcasts too, make sure that you submit them in there. So if you listen to a sports podcast or a tech podcast, you can put that in there as well.
I will say this. I think we would have to be vying for one of the lesser, or I guess wild card positions, because I don't know, going up against like Rooster Teeth for Best Gaming Podcast.
Well, if they already won it last year, I believe if they've already won it, you can't go back to that.
Oh, I see.
Or something like you have to take a year off.
Interesting.
So yeah, welcome.
Sorry, we're recording a little earlier than usual because I am going. Where am I going?
You are going to.
I'm going to California,
Los Angeles,
the city of angels, for Indiecade.
Yes, under the bridge you will be going.
Yes, I haven't decided yet how much actual sightseeing I'm going to get to do because Indiecade, I think, is going to probably take up almost all of my time. We actually submitted Uncle Slam to be judged. To be judge, jury, and executioner. It was not picked, but
so it was executed.
It was executed, but one of the things that we get for having submitted is basically free admission to this indie exchange, which is basically a time to meet up with everybody else who submitted a game. It's a whole day-long thing that's on the Thursday before the actual Indiecade Festival and Conference. And so we're hoping to meet a lot of really cool indie developers, chat up GameMinder with them, sort of explain to them what it is that we do and how it can help them. Because as we've talked about a bunch of times, GameMinder can be really, I think, a useful tool for indies specifically who don't have the marketing budget to go up against like Halo and
And I actually met the Indiecade people and went to their section. Actually, at E3 2012, they weren't actually in the conference. They were kind of they were there. I mean, they weren't like rogue, but they had their own little spot outside of the convention's entrances. And they were really nice people. Got to play some really cool games. And talked to some people. The John Sebastian Joust people were there.
Johann.
Sorry.
It's supposed to be like Johann Sebastian Bach.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Well, I was doing it because I'm in America now.
Okay.
In America or something. I don't know. Long story short, they were really nice people. There was I spent a lot of time there, and I enjoyed that portion.
Yep.
And as far as sightseeing in LA, unless you're going to be able to do it during the day,
yeah. See, that's the thing, because I want to be able to get to, if I can, I'd love to see the Hollywood sign. I'd like to maybe get my wife something on Rodeo Drive.
Yeah, but see, those are like,
and I don't want to be that guy who's rolling down Rodeo with a shotgun.
Word.
These people I'd seen, no, brown skin man since their grandparents bought one.
Jeremy Handel, ladies and gentlemen.
Raids Against the Machine.
Word. Pop.
Word up.
Yes.
Word is born.
Yes. Paul Ryan's favorite band.
That's what I hear.
Ironically.
Not a political podcast, Jim. Steer away. Steer away. Steer away.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, all those places, like the Hollywood sign and Rodeo Drive and all that, they're like 40-minute drives from each other.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I did a quick search last night just to look around the city, and it's like, we're going to be in Culver City. That's where the actual sort of conference is, which is, it's only like 10, 15 minutes from LAX, but it's not in downtown. It's like off to the side.
Like miles wise, it's 10 to 15 minutes. LA, add a half hour to an hour.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So good luck.
Thank you.
But in other news, GameMinder set out a little push.
Yes, well, maybe a little bit of clarification. So GameMinder 2.5 has now been out in the wild for
A week.
What about a month? Something. Whatever it is. It's been out for a little bit now. And one of the big changes is that it moves your reminders from being device locked into your GameMinder.com account. And it is very important that everybody who has not done that yet do so before the end of October.
Correct.
Or else you risk losing your reminders. Because basically, as GameMinder, the previous version used to work, everything was linked to your device. Everything was linked to the ID of your device. That was how you got your push notifications. That was where they were stored. We weren't using iCloud or anything like that. And so in what we've done moving forward is we've decided to link those in a completely different way. So they're linked to your account now, and your account can go anywhere. You can use it on iOS, you can use it on Android, you can use it on the web. And versions of GameMinder prior to 2.5 are not aware of any of these changes, which means that if you were to get 2.6 when it comes out, hopefully by the end of this month, you won't have those reminders. They won't be linked. So we sent out a push to everyone who hasn't done that yet. The good news is almost 80% of people who are using GameMinder have updated already. It's one of the cool things about being on iOS. iOS people are fast updaters. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, I think iOS 6, which has been out for like 2 weeks, is already at like 70 or 80% penetration, and now GameMinder looks like it's about the same.
And when we're talking things like 2.5 and things like this, we're talking about the iOS version of GameMinder.
Yes.
If you have the Android version, you already are ahead of the curve, so we're trying to get the iOS people up to you for the first time.
Exactly. The Android version and the web version are in lockstep, so every time we make a change to the web version, that carries down to the Android version automatically, but the iOS version was built slightly differently and built earlier. So in some ways it's ahead, but in other ways it's behind. So we're trying to, our next big push as we move through the fall is to sort of unify everything into one big system. And this is one of the first steps, was sort of letting everybody know, hey, if you're on an earlier version of GameMinder and you still want to use it, you should really visit the App Store, get the newest version, and make sure that you're completely on board as we sort of bring everything forward late October, November.
Just thinking about just signing up for a GameMinder cloud account.
Exactly.
So all your reminders for your games are in the cloud.
In the cloud. Head in the cloud.
And also in the game cloud verse gaming industry news.
Indeed.
The heads of BioWare stepped down about 10 days ago. We didn't talk about this on the last podcast.
Right.
But there are some more news that came up as to why Mr. Greg Zeschuk and Ray Mazeika. If I ruin those names, I'm sorry.
Yep.
But we'll say Greg and Ray from BioWare did step down as the heads, and the news is the negative fan reaction of Mass Effect 3 and the Star Wars Old Republic MMORPG really just got to them, and it got
took
to
its toll.
Yeah, and it got to the point where making games and being in the gaming stream was just not fun anymore, and so they pulled out.
Yeah, and now this is a big topic, and I think it's actually a pretty big topic leading into where I'm going, because even more so on the indie side, I gotta feel like little 1 and 2 man shops literally pour their heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into their games, and when you put it out there, and you have people on the internet, if there's one thing people on the internet are not, it's subtle. And and we dealt with this. When we showed off Uncle Slam at PAX, there was a podcast that proudly declared us worst game in show. I think it was simply just because the game wasn't really meant for them. It was, they were approaching it from the point of view of like, I'm a hardcore Mortal Kombat Street Fighter type fighting game gamer, and your game is a little bit too fun and cutesy and simplistic. But they, and it hurt. I'm not gonna lie. When you work so hard on a thing and you put it out there, to have people basically take a dump on it, that is not a fun place to be in. And the unfortunate truth of the matter is that the gaming industry, game players are passionate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they are very quick to passionately defend something, but they're just as quick to passionately rip something apart.
Yeah, and then that's hiding behind the keyboard or screen.
Yeah.
With all the negative reactions, and sometimes negative feedback is warranted for some things. It's just like you said, it's how you display it. It's being subtle, and even coming out with being positive about it. No one's just like, hey, you know what? I really liked your game. Thanks for making it. It's like, let's see, oh my god, the best thing ever. It's always just one end of the pendulum or another. There's no really middle ground, or if there is, it's not as prevalent as it should be.
Right. Well, I think a lot of it really just boils down to the fact that anything people like is going to generate strong feelings, and especially when, games, as I think everybody who would be listening to this knows, games are different. Books, you write a narrative, you finish it, you put it out there, people consume it. Movies, the same way. TV, the same way. But games are different. They're interactive. They are usually a narrative that the maker creates, but then the player participates in. And it's in a way that other media just simply is not. And I think that people take ownership of their game experiences in ways that they don't necessarily take ownership of movies or TV or,
it's almost the closest that you can get to sports fans being fanatical about
it. It is probably very similar to sports, because it's sports that you actually get to participate in,
right?
And that I think so. That's an apt comparison, because you always have those people who are screaming at the TV like, "Oh, come on, I could have thrown that better." Blah 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 blah. In games, you get to try to throw it better,
right?
And as a result, I think the feeling of ownership and the feeling of participation is so much stronger in this sort of an interactive media that people can very easily lose sight of the fact that there are real people creating these experiences for us. That are, yes, it's a business, but it's also artistic. It's also very personal. It can also be, all of these things. And, they basically play it and then have a bug and then they just rail about it on the internet.
Yeah. And, back to the guys from BioWare, I guess the big thing is that we are losing two great minds of gaming. When you sometimes it didn't even matter what the name of the game was. BioWare was one of those people like, oh, they're making it. So
no, they're not just quitting BioWare; they're basically dropping out of the industry, right?
I believe the one person is, I believe, let's see here, not Ray, but the other one, Greg. I think Greg said in an interview that he was going to look into maybe doing something else on his own, but I think Ray is just getting the heck out.
Yeah, and I mean that's if you're burned, you're burned. Burned, and I mean burned out. Yes, somewhat burned in terms of he got burned by the experience, but I think he's probably just also burned out. I mean, obviously everybody knows that these big AAA titles also tend to have pretty ridiculous development cycles. You know what I mean? Where we're no strangers to having to stay late to make sure something gets done. But when you're putting a game of the scale of a Mass Effect or a massively multiplayer online, Star Wars, universe RPG, when you're putting one of those out, we're talking about like 80-hour work weeks for months leading up to release
for like 150 people.
Yeah.
So, and they were. You would think that being the heads, they would be able to like just check in and check out and do their thing, their philanthropy.
And I'd be willing to bet there are people like that working at game companies like this, but clearly that's not these guys. These guys are the guys who care about how their game works out. You know what I mean? They're not the bean counters, pencil pushers. They're guys who love and are passionate about games, and which is why I think that makes it that much more of a twist of the knife when, they've got people petitioning, you must change the ending to this game.
Yes. Which I still haven't played. I will, but
I think it was overblown. I enjoyed it.
Oh, all right. Well,
but there's actually now, they've got the trilogy just went into GameMinder.
It is.
You'll actually be able to get all three Mass Effect games in one package and sort of play them all the way through. I mean, that's kind of the way I played it, because one of the cool things about Mass Effect was that you could
take your character,
take your saved character and just bring them along with you. But it would, I don't know yet that I'll play all three of them again. I've always sold them back after I played through. I played through the first one twice, the second one twice, and the third one I just couldn't do it a second.
Well, I just got burned out. I was going to start playing it, Mass Effect 3 after Skyrim. I still haven't finished Skyrim because I just got burned out, and luckily it was summertime, so I left the house. So now it's cold again, so I'm
got a little bit of sun.
But there are video games still being released.
Yeah, so let's talk about what's coming out this week. All right, so a couple of pretty big names coming out this week that I know are highly anticipated. We got Dishonored. We've got both the black and white Pokemon version 2. Black has far more followers or trackers or what have you than white. I don't know why that is.
Don't know either.
I don't know anything about Pokemon.
Not sure. If someone wants to write in.
Yep. We got Fable the Journey.
Yes, that's a Connect featured game, I believe.
I think that's right. And I mean, I've played all the other Fable games and I enjoyed them. They're not obviously the most revolutionary, changing the world
penultimate
of
game of
yeah,
all
exactly.
time.
That Molyneux would like us to think they are, but they're fun.
Well, yeah.
The one that I know that a lot of people in house here are waiting for is XCOM: Enemy Unknown.
Are you getting this?
Probably not.
Okay.
Well, not right away. I'm still working my way through the God of War ones, and I've still got Journey to play through. And who knows what's going to happen after this weekend? After I come back from Indiecade, I may have even more stuff to play. So
because for me, online multiplayer first-person games, I will only play if I know a group of people are playing it that I can play with. I will not do public matches.
I don't know that it's first-person.
Whatever. Multiplayer games in general. I guess it doesn't have to be. Just multiplayer games in general, whatever it is.
Right.
If there aren't people that I know playing it, I won't get it because I know that my experience will be horrible because I'm usually horrible at multiplayer games. But, but Sonic Adventure 2 is also coming out as well, and I hope it's not another horrible Sonic game like the last 9 have been. At least
I have not played a Sonic game since the Game Gear.
Sega.
Yeah, actually, you know what? We met a guy at PAX, and he handed me his card, and it was Sega. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I immediately asked him, I was like, so let me ask you a question. Are you more Sega, or are you more Sega?
Yeah.
And he knew exactly what I meant, which I thought was terrific.
Nice.
We've also got Worms Revolution and Just Dance 4.
Yes.
Are some other things coming out this week.
Yeah, that's another... Just Dance, I think, is that it's coming up for the Wii and Xbox, I believe.
That I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I did not check that.
Weren't you looking at it?
Part. I copied them into my notes so that I know what I can see.
All right.
So Jim, what game are you gonna follow this week?
I am going to follow, ironically enough, since we were just talking about shooter games that I'm horrible at, a game called Takedown. Now, Takedown is actually bringing the first-person shooter back towards the Rainbow Six days. It's a tactical shooter.
Okay.
So it rewards the player who's not only in cover, but is thinking about their shot and is not just run and gunning it.
No run and gun.
So that looks really cool. It's made by the Seattle-based developer Serialon.
Okay.
Unless it's a double L and it's a Yan, like Yama.
Yama.
But so that's the game that I am tracking that was just added to GameMinder. It should be coming out sometime in 2013.
Right on.
Any game pique your interest?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Sleepwalker's Journey. It's from 11-Bit Studios, and it is a puzzler. Basically,
yes.
It's another one of those ones where the name caught my eye. I went and watched the trailer. It's got that blend of sort of quirkiness that I think would be really fun, and it's coming out pretty much everywhere. It's coming out iOS, Mac, Android. So I'll probably end up playing it on iOS. It's another one. I find that my iOS gaming, what I really like is the kind of game that I can have TV on in the background and play the game at the same time. If I'm going to be dialed straight in to a game, I tend to do that on 360 or PS3. I don't typically do that on my iOS. So this looks like the kind of game that's got enough moving parts, but it's not so twitchy that I'm going to have to be completely dialed into it. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the GameMinder Report this week. To view the show notes for this episode or follow any of the games mentioned today, don't forget to visit GameMinderReport.com/20.
Oh, okay. And to also find out the most recent news and check out what games just got added, go to our Twitter account at GameMinder or check us out on Facebook /GameMinder.
And to follow all your favorite upcoming games, don't forget to visit GameMinder.com or download the GameMinder app for iOS or Android. And finally, Jim forgot his script.
Well, but no, you changed the script. You were the one who started it.
Don't forget to buy all your games through the website or app, because every game you buy helps support GameMinder.
Yes.
So why don't you go ahead and sign off, Jim?
Signing off for the Game Report, I'm Jim.
And I'm Jeremy, reminding you,
don't forget to play.